Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Pineapple Podcast. Today, we have Lauren Cohen, who is an expert when it comes to the legal side of investing abroad as a Canadian. Lauren, please welcome to the Pineapple Podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm curious to know what causes it to be called the Pineapple Podcast, since there's not, other than the fact I know now of your origin, but there's definitely not a huge amount of pineapples growing in Ontario.
It's funny you say that. So the Pineapple Podcast, it's all about being tough on the outside, sweet on the inside, and wearing your crown of gratitude proudly.
Okay, I like that. That's good. That's like I'm peeling the onion. There you go. I love
There
it.
you go. Yeah. So, and it's meant to just be fun, interactive, and really doesn't bound us to anything because we could literally talk about just about anything on the podcast show, which is kind of like what we were aiming on, right? Because we can be mindset, we can be finances, we can be law, we can be anything we want to be. So this is an exciting space. As you know, most of our viewers are people that are coming into the real estate world and they really want to grow and develop and expand themselves and expand their companies. So, thank you for joining us. We really want to get into your stories. I know our viewers can't wait to understand what's the metrics behind investing abroad as a Canadian, but we'd love to get your backstory. Like tell us a little bit about who is Lauren and how did you come about becoming an investor?
So I think, well, which one do you want? The abridged version? Okay, I'm going to give you the abridged version. So first of all, I'm originally from Toronto. I grew up in Thornhill, and my family is still there. I came to Florida 22 years ago in February. I was actually here for 3 years in the 90s, and then I moved back to Toronto in November of 97, I think. And it was challenging because once you've lived in Florida, I mean, you should know you're from Trinidad and Tobago, but once you've lived in Florida, it's hard to go back to the cold. And I was never a cold weather person. And I was driving to work in Mississauga from Thornhill. And I called my mom and I said, I'm just going to continue driving south because this is not for me. But anyway, I was there for a few years and then I came back here in 01. I helped start a business. My ex-boss, partner stole money from the house that I sold in Toronto. So that was an interesting experience, which probably would never happen in Canada. And I've had my share of ups and downs. And then in 2007, February of 2007, I had just gotten married and my ex-husband and I went on our honeymoon to Thailand. And on the way back, he was deported. And he was expeditiously removed, subsequently deported. And here I was in the process of getting my green card, wondering what the is going on here. And that was really what prompted me to start my real journey into the immigration and investment space. Because before that, I was working in-house as a lawyer in the healthcare space and in the investment space. Actually, I worked at a mutual fund company. I worked at Citigroup. But I never really was directly involved with the investors. It was more on the corporate side. And then in healthcare, of course, it was completely different. And then this deportation happened and I tried to fight it. And in retrospect, fortunately, was unable to successfully fight it. But I learned a lot about this space. And I started pursuing opportunities and found that I had a real knack for it. Plus, I'm Canadian, invested in the US, a dual citizen. At the time was getting my green card, which my ex-husband was denied because he was inadmissible. So it was a very interesting time in my life. As you can see, I have both flags behind me, and I always am very proud to be Canadian. But it was a very challenging journey, which I turned adversity into prosperity, literally. And the title of my book, which is also back there, is called Finding Your Silver Lining in the Business Immigration Process. And it's really about just that, finding the silver lining through the clouds and making a difference for other people.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. What a story. So I guess you were personally motivated to solve a lot of these problems, right?
I am.
Yeah, you know what? I want to really get into the investment world as well with you. So tell us a little something here. Are most of your clients foreign investors wanting to invest in the US, or are
Yes,
we looking at US citizens wanting to invest in other countries?
much less so. I'd say 1 in 20 is an American investing outside of America or a Canadian investing in another country. 90% of my clients are investing into the US, and some are investing in businesses, some are buying real estate. Many are buying real estate because, as you know, I'm a lawyer and a realtor. And my signature program is actually called How to Immigrate Through Real Estate. And people are like, what? You can do that? And you can.
Yeah.
And the proof is in the pudding because we keep getting approvals. So there's something up with it, you know. But yeah, it's we're mostly doing inbound to the US, but not exclusively. So we do a lot of people, like we do have a lot of clients that invest in Mexico or Costa Rica or Belize or Honduras or Israel, for example, or
Yes.
France or wherever. And I have partners. And the important thing is to make sure that whatever you're doing is done with the right partners and the right structure. And too many people just start doing research online and finding, you know, the best that would be the people that paid the most to get to the top of the Google search, right? And that doesn't mean they're the best. And so we work only with vetted professionals. I'll give you a perfect example. About a year ago, I had a colleague who wanted to buy a business in Cambodia. Okay, I'll be honest. I didn't really know anybody in Cambodia. My cousin had lived there for a while. That's about as far as I got. I really wasn't super connected in Cambodia.
Yeah.
And I conducted about 10 interviews with Cambodian lawyers and chose 2, of which he chose 1 to undertake the investment. So that's what we do. If I don't have the partners, I'm going to vet them for you and wherever it is that you want to invest.
Beautiful. Well, as you know, a lot of our viewers, they're really intrigued with it coming into the US as a Canadian investor. Some of them are actually going into Costa Rica and some of the Caribbean islands, but the majority of people, they want to learn how to get into the US market, you know? So, you know, and for myself as well, like if I were to come to you and I say, okay, Lauren, look, I am ready to invest. Maybe it's multifamily, maybe it's residential homes. Where do I start, or how do we start the process if we wanted to do that with you?
Yeah. So the first step would always be to have a consultation with us. I actually have a consultation right after our call with somebody that was referred to me by another Key Spire member who wants to start investing in the US. They don't necessarily want a visa today, but they may eventually want a visa. We're not really sure. So they set up a consult with either my team or myself, depending on how ready they are to get started. And then we take them through the process of, you know, setting up a deposit and making the investment. We do an onboarding call to figure out where and how and structure. And then we set up a consult with our cross-border tax team and then with our asset protection transactional legal team. So it's a step-by-step process, and each and every client is handheld throughout the process because it's very different for each and every one of them.
Beautiful. So, I mean, like, I really love that. And I just want to get it in terms of the step by step. So, we do the initial consultation. You kind of lay the framework. Here's what you need on the taxation side or the corporate structure side. Then we can engage. Then you engage them because, like you said, the unique thing is you are on the law side, but you're also on the realtor side. So, it's almost like one-stop shopping. We can come to you and literally get a full turnkey service, correct?
Correct. That's really what separates us from everybody else. So some people might go to the cross-border tax advisor. Some people might go to the lawyer. Some people might go to the realtor. We are a full service. So because of my dual licensure, not just Canada and the US, which is one thing because I am dually licensed, but also real estate and law, I have access to a team everywhere in literally the country and most places in the world that will implement the strategy. So we are that general contractor, so to speak, the orchestra leader that manages all of the other players under us. So for example, I just had a client that bought land in Texas. the realtor in Texas managed the case. I was in touch with her throughout to make sure it was moving smoothly. It was originally supposed to close December 9th, ended up closing December 31st. Now, at least it's closed. Everything was handled properly. I set him up with a real estate attorney, and, you know, it's just smooth sailing from there. So I guess at the end of the day, the point is that there is really no other service provider that we have found that does offer that turnkey one-stop shop. And that is super valuable for people that are, especially from other countries. Like when you're coming in from Canada, you've got enough to deal with. You don't want to also deal with figuring out who's the best this and who's the best that and who's the best this. And we might give you a choice or two, but generally speaking, our team is pretty much set. And unless somebody has an issue, we like to work with consistently with the same team members, you know, again, with exceptions, just because there's consistency of workflow, consistency of service, consistency of delivery. And at the end of the day, the client looks to us to figure out what it is that makes the most sense for them. And we are ultimately responsible for all of them. They're kind of like, you know, they're like subcontractors under us. So this way, you know that you have an accountability partner managing the process for you.
That's huge. Like for me, that's pretty powerful actually, because what I'm hearing here is, Lauren, you know, if I'm coming into this space, I often hear a lot of you know, the people I work with, they're talking about, well, I want to go and explore in the US. I want to go to a certain market and chat with some agents or see who's there. This sort of propels you further, because again, you know, sometimes when you want to propel your business or move further, you really got to connect with people versus trying to go it alone, right? Going alone can only get you so far. But when you have a network and you have people that can refer you, that's, to me, that's the real power. So if I were interested in, let's say, the land development, I was interested in maybe acquiring multifamily, because multifamily is quite exciting and everybody's loving the US.
Everybody wants a piece of multifamily, yes,
That's
for sure.
exactly it. You know, so now I call Lauren up, you know, literally you can set me up to a point where I have confidence in the team. I have confidence in you. We basically at the stage where we could literally review and make a decision versus, well, is this the right lawyer? Is this the right accountant? Is this the right agent? Are my numbers correct? Are they true? Not true? Is the property really there? Like, there's so many questions that come up in people's mind.
Yes.
And I think that you're just propelling us further into the transaction, which is where we need to be. If you want to be a true investor and you're serious about the US, then it sounds to me like this is the place to be, right? One of the questions that I really want to get into as well is, what are you seeing in terms of investors coming into the US market? What are some of the properties or the strategies you see that a lot of them are gravitating towards?
Yeah, I think that what's starting to become more popular, which is something that my partner and I are very focused on. She actually is from Calgary, and she teaches people how to invest in the equivalent of subject twos, agreements for sale in Canada, is just that, subject twos. Because a lot over the time when the market has been so crazy, people were over investing, over mortgaging, and they are underfunded. And it's becoming more and more apparent now as time is going on, and they're not able to pay their mortgage. So those subject to opportunities, meaning that you basically buy out the mortgage at a discount without putting a down payment, is available more and more. I think that that's going to be a very big opportunity. Seller financing is going to be big as well, because the rates are high, and so seller financing is starting to make a little more of a comeback. Now, each state is different. Florida is always in demand, so you've got, especially since the pandemic. I mean, it's been insane. I've never seen the market like this, and I've lived in Florida as you know over 2 decades. So
Right.
So it's been completely insane, and so as a result of that, there's a shift in supply and demand. Obviously, I myself am in the market for a house. As I sold my house in June, and I was hoping it would shift, and it hasn't shifted as much as I wanted to, and the prices are
Right.
still a little higher than they should be, or maybe a lot. The point is that it's not one size fits all, And that is so important when you are looking at investing, because a lot of Canadians go to American companies say, set up an LLC. That's how you invest in America.
Right.
No, not a good plan for Canadians, because LLCs are considered disregarded entities by the CRA. So if you set up an LLC, you're basically asking for them to double tax you, because it's not, it may as well not have bothered to do anything. So at the end of the day, it's just so important that you don't just listen to what your friend says or your brother says or your sister says, because your tax situation is different. Maybe you have partners, maybe you don't. It's all about making sure that you have the right coverage for you, and that it's custom built for your needs and your particular situation.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely love that, and that probably leads into another question, which is about, well, risk management. I'm coming in as a Canadian. I'm excited. I want to do this, but in reality, I don't know. I really don't know too much about how do I do this. So what are some of the risks that we need to be aware of, and how do we mitigate that?
Oh my goodness. So there are, the risks are really going to depend on also the state, the investor, the political climate, the changing rates, changing interest rates specifically. In the US, for the most part, people they need title insurance. Cash buyers do not need title insurance, but I still recommend it, because that's going to offset some of your risk as well. There's always currency exchange risk. I have a great currency exchange partner that's going to save some of that risk. But of course, I've changed my money. When I bought my first property here, I paid 56 cents on the dollar. And I've never mitigated that risk. So, and people are complaining because it's 30%. It's all about timing. And I always say the right time to get into the market was yesterday, but since yesterday is gone, then the right time to get into the market is today. So if you're not already invested in the US market, then you need to do it now. The most important things that you must avoid are not setting up the right structure, not over capitalizing, under capitalizing and over investing, not having the right professionals to guide you through the process, trying to find deals that are too good to be true, and they are often too good to be true, not doing your due diligence, not checking under the hood, not making sure that everything is handled properly and that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Now, there is one thing. A lot of people think that they have to wait until the structure is set up to make the offer or to buy the property or to close, and that's not necessarily true. You can initially close personally as long as you're in the process, and then transition over to the entity soon before you actually have a capital gain to realize.
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely. And one of the other things, Lauren, that comes up quite often in terms of questions is, well, if I'm coming into the US market as a Canadian, do I have to always come in with all cash, or
No.
are there opportunities to find
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, if you get a visa, that's going to help your opportunities greatly, because then you also get a social security number. When you get a social security number, you get to build US credit. And there's always going to be better financing available for US investors, for US residents and US people that have US credit. Without that, I do have an amazing partner. I'm actually doing a webinar on January 10th, probably after this is aired, called Lendi, and they specifically lend to to people investing in non-owner occupied US real estate, mainly from Canada.
Right.
And they are a great lender. They need the structure in place, and then they will lend you, decent loan to value. And I have many other lenders as well, private lenders. It just depends on your history, the specific lender, what your risk tolerance is, and
Beautiful.
so on.
And even on the lending side, like even for myself, we have a bunch of land in just outside Lehigh Acres. In fact, in Lehigh Acres, just outside Fort Myers. It needs to be built. So something like that is something that you could always assist with as well, right?
Doesn't matter where, yeah.
Right. Perfect. So I absolutely love that. One of the things that's happening, as you know, the market has shifted, as you rightly pointed out. So a lot of investors are asking, is now a good time to invest across into the US?
Of course, absolutely. The prices are coming down. The rates are dropping slightly. It's a perfect time to invest in the US. Absolutely. And people, again, it's yesterday was the perfect time. Today is the next best opportunity. Because if you wait, tomorrow is not going to be as good. And then you're going to miss out on the opportunity to earn money from that investment property while you're waiting for the market to shift or whatever the case may be.
That's very true. Because again, the market waits on no one, right? It's either you're
Market waits.
in or you're just watching. So I agree with the philosophy. Now is the next best time, And what are you seeing in terms of what is the attractiveness that really draws people so much to the US? We all often hear the Canadian market is inflated. It's going too high. Yet everybody who touches or looks at the US market, they're always intrigued, always ready to jump in, always want to go. What is the driving force you think that really draws people or investors into this market?
Volume, ease of access, lower price point to access. You can get in for 200,000, even less some places, maybe 20,000 is available. Leveraging a much broader market. Yes, it's going to mean that there's more demand, but the supply is much greater. You have your cap rates are generally higher no matter where you're investing. And your return on investment, it may not be the same as like in the GTA, but the GTA is often untouchable. So you need to make sure that you have everything, all of your I's dotted or as many as possible and T's crossed when you are investing. You're never going to have a perfect situation, but it just has to be the right one for you.
Yeah, I totally love that. And it is in fact one of the draws I see for myself too with people coming in. There's cap rate, there's cash, there's low entry points into the market. I guess, when you look at the population base and the amount of housing there is, really and truly, there's something for everybody, right? And you can also strategize if you're loving multifamily, maybe you want to do short-term rental or lifestyle properties where you come and you vacation in Florida, right? For a while, and then you could put that to work at the same time. Like once you're not there, it goes back out in the rental market. So,
right.
I think it's absolutely brilliant. So one of the things I guess, Lauren, that I'd love to really unpack with you as well is, so I'm a Canadian. I'm coming into the US. You said that it's a good idea to get the visa. What if you did not want that visa, or you just wanted to just be the investor? There's still strategies and opportunities for people to sort of jump in and work with lenders as a Canadian.
Yeah, you're just not going to get the same rates because your rates are going to be foreign investor rates. So your rates might be slightly higher, but absolutely the money is still available to you even as a foreign investor.
Okay, brilliant. So really there's no limitations other than getting into a network. Find the people that knows the people like yourself so that you could actually build out a quicker way to getting into the market and building your generational wealth over time, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Cool. So I guess, one of the things I'd love to share with you, I mean, we've unpacked a lot of information here, but are there any other tips or tricks that you'd like to sort of share with the viewership as they're coming into this new space or wanting to discover this new space?
So don't be married to any particular location necessarily, depending on what you want to do. I mean, there are a lot of people that want to invest in Florida, and that makes sense because Florida is always going to be hot. That's just how it is, But don't limit your opportunities because you have a notion of where the opportunities lie, because they may be completely different than where you originally planned. And don't get stuck on setting up your structure, as I said, before you look at opportunities, because it's not absolutely necessary. You're not going to, however, get funding until you do have some kind of structure in place. And the reason for that is that Once you have entities set up, you get what's called a taxpayer identification number. And without that, you can't access funding, no matter what. That's different than a social security number. It's attached to an entity, but you can't access funding. Maybe through a private lender you could, but generally speaking, you can't access funding without at least some way to identify you. And that is also what's used to set up a bank account, which is going to be used needed in order to close on a property as well. So it's a step-by-step process. Don't run, walk. So just because you think something is the perfect opportunity for you doesn't mean it is, again, and there's going to be another one around the corner. So the most important thing that you can do is do this as a process, and do it step by step to make sure that what you're doing makes sense and is done in the right way, so you don't have to backtrack or step back and redo things, because that's going to cost a lot more money to unpack and repack than it is to just do it right the first time.
Absolutely love that. And, I'm sure one of the questions in someone's mind, if I'm coming into the market, I know this is kind of, the question would be based more on the person who's coming in, but just to have a ballpark idea, what sort of funding should we have available for the structure or the setup in order to get things in place so that we can continue to grow and invest? Just for ballpark numbers at this point, if you can share that.
Sure. So our fee for setting up your structure, which includes your first two entities, is $10,000. So that is generally going to be the cost to start investing properly. With our guidance. Doesn't mean you can't do it more cheaply, but that's how much it costs to do it with us. So you're looking at about $10,000 and a couple of $100 for filing fees, and you're good to go.
No, brilliant. No, that's absolutely great, because at the end of the day, there's so much value in that. Honestly, for what you can deliver in terms of setting up the network, providing details on the property, getting financing, that's worth every penny, because you're putting out what you're going to be making. So you really, it's not necessarily a cost. It's more like an investment.
It is an investment, and it's also a business expense, so you can write that off. So
there you go. And when you're making the money, now you'll see the brilliance behind it. So you put out 10, you get things set up, and then you sky's the limit, right? Because the network, I think, is the most crucial component as a foreign investor going into any market. It's like you really got to get to someone who knows people so that you can make this happen. So, I think it's absolutely brilliant the way you've structured it. Thank you so much for sharing. This information is absolutely golden. We truly appreciate it, truly love what it is you're doing here, I guess, in terms of, if people wanted to connect with you, Lauren, what's the best way for us to get in touch with you?
Sure, you can send us an email. Well, we're pretty much everywhere, branded as Investing Across Borders, from Facebook to Instagram to LinkedIn, you name it, you can find us through that brand. I have a podcast. Guess what the podcast is called?
Investing Overseas.
Investing Cross Borders. You're close. You tricked me. You can also email us at hello@investingacrossborders.net and hello@investingacrossborders.net. Our website is investingacrossborders.net. We have master classes once a month. Usually it's the third Wednesday of the month. This month it's the 18th, which I think that might be this. No, it's the third Wednesday. I don't know. I can't keep track anymore.
Okay, yeah.
The third Wednesday of the month, and hopefully you guys can join us. But every month we have a master class, and we have all kinds of ways, all kinds of downloads available, which I'll be happy to share with your team if they'd like. For example, one is 10 Steps to Successful U.S. Real Estate Investing, which is a free download that at least outlines what you need to do in order to invest properly. And so you can find us everywhere.
Good. That's absolutely wonderful. And what I'll do as well, I'll put the main contact information in the comments down below, so our viewers would have access to that for sure.
Thank you.
So, Lauren, thank you so much. I mean, I really appreciated this. I know there's layers and layers and layers of conversation that we can go into, but then we might need the whole afternoon. So,
Yes.
We'll definitely want to get you back here again so that we can unpack it, almost like strategy by strategy or silo by silo to understand even further how we can do this. I think this is an exciting strategy for a lot of investors. They want to learn and they wanted to get into cross borders for sure. So, with that, we're pretty much coming to the end of the program here. So is there any sort of parting words you'd like to leave with our viewers?
Don't be afraid to reach out. We will not bite. And please do reach out. Don't do this without the right professional guidance.
Absolutely. And guys, once again, remember to hit the like and the subscribe button and the notification bell, because we want to grow our base with the Pineapple Podcast. And remember, it's all about being tough on the outside, sweet on the inside, and wearing your crown of gratitude proudly. Thanks again, everyone. See ya.